Since we're at distance, I'm going to drop the mask while I talk a little bit. Welcome to the board meeting tonight. It's 6:30. Let's go ahead and start. Let's look at the minutes from last time. Give those a quick read and approve those if you wish. Pretty short and concise. Any discussion of the minutes?
Make a motion to approve minutes as read.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second to approve minutes as read?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition can say no. All right, thank you very much. Do we have any comments from citizens? I don't see too many here that we don't expect, so we'll move along. Conservation Bank Board. Mr. Smith, I take it?
Yes, sir. Andrew Smith, I'm the chair of the Coney County Conservation Bank Board.
Glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here. And we had a presentation at our last meeting that you wanted to meet with members of the OCCB to talk about collaboration, and that's really why I'm here, is to, and anything you want to ask me or whatever you want me to do in terms of telling you what we do, I'm happy to, but I'm just not sure exactly how you want to go forward with the conversation.
Just tell us a little bit about
Okay.
what you do and what we could do together.
Okay, so we were started in 2011 by an ordinance by the Coney County Council for the purpose of assisting private citizens in putting permanent conservation protection on their property, on their private, real property. And it could be for historical reasons, cultural reasons, natural resource reasons, work in farms. And it's done through conservation easements, which is a legal mechanism by which a landowner agrees to not develop their property. So they permanently remove the right to develop their property for industrial, commercial, or residential purposes to keep it essentially in its present state. And what that does is you get an appraisal of your property, of that value, and if you agree to remove those development rights, it reduces the value of your property. You can't make a subdivision there or whatever. And so that's what we look at as the conservation value of that property. And so to encourage a landowner to do that, what typically happens is entities like the Coney Soil and Water Conservation District, Upstate Forever, Natureland Trust, and other organizations like that, they get funding to pay those private landowners for that reduction in value. And then they put the legally binding conservation easement on the record, showing that in perpetuity, it's in conservation. And then those properties, after they have a conservation easement on it, are monitored by the Soil and Water Conservation District or Upstate Forever to make sure that they're continuing to maintain those conservation values. And this is something that's done according to the Internal Revenue Code. The IRS sets out statutory standards for conservation. And if you violate, and you get benefits, the landowner gets estate tax benefits, revenue benefits, that sort of thing, as well as maybe having their value purchased. So they've got to always meet those standards that have been established. You can also do it through conservation purchases of property. And we've had a couple of those recently where the Natureland Trust works with the landowner and says, we'll get the funding to buy it outright, fee simple purchase. and you'll transfer it to us with funding that we've raised, like the Nature Land Trust has raised, to pay you, landowner, for your property. The whole property is the conservation value at that point, not just the reduction in value, it's the whole thing because it's going to be purchased outright. And then they look for funding from us, from the South Carolina Conservation Bank Board, the NRCS. They look for funding from them and other entities, and that land will be purchased and then owned by somebody like Upstate Forever or the Nature Land Trust or the Soil and Water Conservation District, and then again managed for conservation. And we have recently, we've done two this year, two working farms, one 155 acres up in Mountain Rest, one 165 acres out off Coffee Road. One's a timber farm and a working agricultural farm. It's near where I live. They grow corn on it every year to feed to their cows. The other one is a working timber forest. And one of them was an outright purchase, one of them was a conservation easement. And so they'll be managed for farming or that kind of activity. And that's very important to the Conservation Bank. Some of them are more of what you would think of as conservation land. There was 238 acres purchased over near Devil's Fork State Park that had some beautiful creeks on it, big extensive stands of Oconee bellflowers, and the Nature Land, we gave funding for that. Nature Land Trust will manage it for public access and for conservation, and potentially to become either a complement to or part of Devil's Fork State Park. And we got a grant in 2016, 2016, from Duke Energy as part of the relicensing of Lake Keowee. They gave the Oconee County Conservation Bank $600,000. It's actually $618,000. And before that, we had rules and regulations for how we did things, how we take applications, but we didn't have any money to do any purchases. And with that, we started getting applications for conservation easements and conservation purchases. And we're down to about $450,000 now. We've given out a little over $150,000 since 2016 to now for those conservation purchases. We set a limit for ourselves, for the bank, of no more than 10% of the conservation value of any project. So if the purchase is going to be $880,000, we can give a grant, and we did, for $88,000. If the conservation easement value is going to be $34,000, or we have one for $81,000, we gave or awarded, approved a grant for $8,100. And that works well with the South Carolina Conservation Bank because they've set their limit at 30%. And what those private landowners and eligible recipients like Upstate Forever or Nature Land Trust or the Soil and Water Conservation District, they want to know, and they're figuring how they're going to get this money. They like knowing, well, I can get 10% from the OCCB, I can get 30% from South Carolina Conservation Bank, I can get the rest from NRCS or some other sources. Some of the organizations like Upstate Forever, they get funds from private foundations, donations by citizens, that sort of thing, to help them fund what they do. And so, for us, we like farms because we like agriculture. We like people working on farms, and we like how farms look. We think that having farms out there enhances the beauty and the value of Oconee County, and so we're very supportive of supporting private farmers, working farmers, in putting conservation protection on their property. And for me, I've been an attorney for almost 30 years now, and a lot of the work I've done has been in conservation. And I grew up working on farms in South Georgia and love farm countryside. And for me, a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to lock it up, for forever. What about my grandchildren or whatever? But the way I look at it is that you love this land right now. You love the way it looks. You love what's being done to it. It just feels right to you. Don't you want to share that with folks in the future? You know, I look at it from the point of view of the folks in the future may enjoy exactly what you enjoy as well. And yeah, you make a sacrifice doing that, but in our opinion, it really adds to the value of for everybody. I live up near the National Forest, and I can tell you during COVID, the traffic on our road going down to Earl's Ford has been triple of any other time. When people figured out they can get out, they need to get out, that's where they went. All of our places up on the Chattooga, folks are all over those things now because it's so wonderful. And it just tells me we need more land that folks can access. And there's no public access on a working farm that's got a conservation easement. You're not gonna go get under the tractor, and run over. But some of them have potential to either be enhance what the National Forest can offer with trails, or like that 238 acres, it's gonna have trails and public access on it. So it's available for folks. And so this is the first meeting of this board I've ever been to. I'm not really sure what y'all do, but that's what we do. And we would be more than happy to work with you or the people that come to you. I mean, we would love for you to get our message out there that folks can do this. But, so everybody on the board was very excited when we got the presentation that you wanted to come see us. I mean, you wanted to talk to us about what you do. So
One of the things we're trying to do is establish better communications among all the groups.
Yes, sir.
And to do that, we've made a directory, and we'd love to add you to the directory.
Absolutely.
And some I jotted down, you mentioned Upstate Forever and Oconee and South Carolina Conservation Bank, and anybody else that is appropriate, we might could add to our directory.
I think that's great.
It's kind of aimed at beginning farmers or people that are just learning, starting out, but it applies to everyone.
Okay.
A repository of info where people can go get information quick and easy.
So what is the purpose of the Ag Advisory Board?
It's to promote agriculture and educate the community and advise county council on what things can do agriculturally friendly to support farmers and agriculture in our area.
Okay.
Educate and communicate those interests, just promote agriculture.
Well, I mean, you all know Mr. Land, he's on your board. You've got conservation easements on your property,
Yes.
And, they've got good sides and bad sides. They do restrict you. And, when you're trying to sell property that's got a conservation easement on it, not everybody's gonna be interested, but you only need one to buy your property. But what Ed's done is just a great example of what you can do with conservation and have a viable business on it. So, yeah, we're happy to be on your list and.
And I understand you can continue to manage it as you're doing under your restrictions and guidelines.
Oh, yeah.
If you retain ownership, you can still manage it as you wish. You just can't go crazy and go outside the boundaries of the.
Yeah, that's right. And
Restrictions.
so it's basically the concept of, okay, this land is gonna have a conservation easement on it because it has these certain values. And and those values are like, well, it's got a blue water stream running on the boundary of it. It's got, a wetland on it, or it's got conservation farming practices on it. You need to maintain those. You can't then go in there and start manipulating those or degrading those conservation values for.
Keep it as intended
Yeah,
through
that's
the
right.
agreement. And the
That's
difference
right.
between that and a purchase is someone else manages it. It's sold outright and in the group like Upstate Forever, whoever manages it for conservation.
That's correct. That is correct. And the Natureland Trust, that's one of their specialties, is owning conservation lands and managing them. So, and I expect that, I mean, we've talked about that 155 acre farm up in Mountain Rest. What are you gonna do with the future? Well, they're gonna keep leasing it to the farmers that have been farming it for years. But they also think, well, we might make it a wildlife management area or something like that, or, do a transfer with the state. But it just has to stay. I mean, if it evolved from a farm to another type of conservation property, that would be acceptable as well. And as you can see, you know, I can talk about this stuff longer than you want to listen to. But
Well, I enjoyed it. I've heard Mr. Weiss talk about it at presentations in Upstate Forever, and appreciate their involvement in the Stump House Mountain
absolutely.
Tunnel, you know, a project. So what questions do we have?
Mr. Smith, do you know roughly how many acres in Oconee County are now in conservation easements?
I don't. I can get you that information.
Oh,
I would say probably in the 3,000 acres range, something like that. But, you know, we've got different reports with at least those three entities that have conservation
Right, right.
easements. We've never compiled those, but it's a great question. Yeah. And so we have, we've put conservation protection on, or in the process, we've got a couple that are gonna close either this month or next month, around 800 acres.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
since 2016.
that's good.
And that's
good.
just getting started.
Sure.
There's a lot more out there
I think you,
by
well,
those entities.
the Southern Tract, McPhail Tract, I think it's probably almost close to 2,000 acres.
I see. Mhm. So it could be
It's
well
probably,
more than
it's probably
three, yeah.
above, it's above 3,000, yeah.
I'll get you that information.
I just was curious.
No, it's good info.
We appreciate anything we can do to keep it green around here, because we're growing so fast, it's scary.
I think we've all seen, you know, things we've loved, you know, go away,
Yep.
and we can prevent that. You know, not to our disadvantage. I think it enhances an economy to do that sort of thing.
Do y'all meet regularly, or?
Yeah, we do. We have 7 meetings a year, and we have 3 application deadlines, April 1st, August 1st, and November 1st, where interested parties, applicants submit. We have an application process with a formal application that they send in to us, and then we have a criteria review we go through. So after each one of those deadlines, we'll have a meeting to kind of gather all the applications together and talk about them, and then we'll have a subsequent meeting where we make our decision on them. So we have 6 meetings that are really oriented towards application review, and 1 meeting that's more of a general logistical type meeting, but 7 times a year. Yeah.
Great. And is there a minimum, I think, is it a minimum acreage that you can put in an easement?
No, not for us.
Not for you?
No, we've done as low as 26 acres, and I think the highest that we've done is 238 acres. The private entities like Upstate Forever, their limit is 100 acres.
100, yeah.
Yeah, and they will go under that if the property is nice enough. I'm actually, as an attorney with a client, talking to Upstate Forever about a 70-acre property that they think has enough value for them to go for.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am?
How do you market? How do those applicants that you receive, how do they find you? How are you getting the word out? What does it currently look like?
We don't have much.
Yeah.
And the
I'm
way
wondering how they find you.
Yeah, the way that it works is these, what we call in our ordinance, eligible recipients, who will
Okay.
be the applicants, like Upstate Forever, those people know where
Right.
the money is.
Right.
They will find that money, and a lot of them, Eddie Martin at the Soil
Right.
and Water, he was very involved with the creation of the Conservation Bank here in
Right.
Coney County. And those folks talk among themselves all the time, and, I used to be in that business of getting grants, you do your research, you find out. But I agree, it's sort of, problematic in the sense of the everyday person knowing about it. And we do some presentations, if asked, about that. But for the landowners, it's also, I'm not quite sure how the landowner figures out they need to talk to Upstate Forever. I think it's probably just through their reading and their watching the news and talking to folks that they see that it's out there. But yeah, it's no problem getting it to the people who want the money. They will find you. No doubt. Any other questions? I'm not leaving until I get another question.
Does any of the people, the recipients, I guess you would say, have, ever need like somebody to farm land that is in the conservation aims that say they're getting older and they can't do it themselves or whatever, or they ever.
We haven't seen
for
that,
Young
no.
farmers.
But, I mean, yeah, I mean, up there in Mountain Rest where I live, where that farm is, it's an older man and his son. I mean, you probably know him, Jimmy Robbins and James Robbins, his son, farm that particular one. Jimmy, he wouldn't admit it, but he's getting a little age on him, and,
We're just trying to promote young farmers. I just, that might be something we can incorporate into
Yeah,
a
and
program
I
that
would
we.
think that this is something that younger farmers, and maybe those niche farmers that are doing, naturally grown or sustainable agriculture would be really interested in, because it really fits very well, like the, is it Gibson Cattle Farm?
Yeah,
Or the
Leland
organic.
Gibson.
Yeah.
Organic Gibson beef, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they would be a perfect kind of, partner with us for something like that. Or, BJ Callahan's farm, those types of entities. Yeah, but, yeah.
That's one of the things on our agenda we've been trying to do is locate young farmers that want to farm
Right.
and need places to go and can't afford the land or whatever, can't
Right.
acquire it. We're trying to put the two together some way, that this might be a good.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I mean, it really helps more if you're the owner of the land, that's where we really fit in better, but it could work in that direction. I mean, the folks that did the timber farm this year, they got a grant, they got a $45,000 grant from us, and, to do what they're already doing. And then they made their own donation of essentially around $70,000 for that, as a tax deductible donation by just reducing the value of their farm. And so really all that they got was that $45,000 from us, and then maybe a tax benefit. But, I mean, that's $45,000, that's gonna affect the future, but not really the present, because they're already doing what they're doing. That's a nice piece of income, That's a nice shot in the arm of capital.
It's nice to be able to continue what you're doing under
Yeah.
those,
Yeah.
contracts or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, it's a real benefit. So I know you don't want to be here all night, so.
Well, I enjoyed hearing from you and
Yeah,
appreciate you
thank
coming.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Hope
I'm
you'll
gonna
come.
stay here and listen to your meeting.
Sure, yeah. Come back anytime. You
Okay.
can see there's plenty of seating.
Okay, yeah.
We're never overcrowded. All right, so number 5 is the board member comment. Board members, who has any comments?
I didn't see anything about the letter. Did y'all, what happened with that?
It's drafted and almost ready to go. I think it's close. I think we're supposed to present it tomorrow. That and
So you didn't share it with the rest of the board?
it's still back and forth.
Okay.
Um,
That's what we talked about. I just wondered, I never saw it come across.
Well, I saw the draft this morning, and it's still got red marks on it, and be glad to share it with you as soon as I get it back from Adam or wherever it is right now.
But to update, I think the approach that we took, which we talked about in the last meeting, was that we would just really draft a small, very simple letter with not a lot of specifics, and that the presentation made to council would contain more of the story behind it. And so the letter is really just what we talked about last time.
It's brief because, like Adam mentioned, it's going to get chopped up when it goes through the process. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd just like to hear what y'all.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
It's a good point.
well, we did discuss that. So they didn't have the meeting, the real estate meeting or whatever.
Correct. I think,
Planning meeting or whatever. it
I
was.
think what happened was that, once Adam tried to figure out what the correct processee that would need to happen after he made the motion, and what he found out on his end was that it needed to go to county council
Council
rather than
first.
yeah.
It was canceled anyway.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I would like to say something. We talked about the farmers markets before. Foothills Market is going through October this year, so if anybody has anything, late season like apples or pork. We need vendors because a lot of our seasonal vendors have kind of, it's tapered
Dropped off.
off. And, I mean, we still have we had some apples, scuffenines, muscadine type things that are this season, but just so everybody knows, we're gonna stay open through October.
That's good.
I saw the call in the paper for asking for more produce for those that had some to bring it, so that's great.
Great response.
Turnout's been pretty good.
Excellent. Even in the rain Saturday, it was good.
I think it's been one of the best farmer markets years.
Yeah, we've had a great year.
It really has been. Not that I've been all that often.
I know, we missed you.
It was a good crowd the time or two I went, so
Yeah.
that's great. Pending no other comments, we'll go to number 6, Farmers Resource Guide. We had some discussion on that last month. I think it's getting pretty close, isn't it? I think it's,
Well, I think, yeah, the online one, and I think you all were working on a pamphlet or some shorter version, and Carrie, Ms. Roach, emailed Mr. Blanton with some good ideas on cutting it shorter instead of having so much detail in it, just to put a web link, a paragraph description of what you can find, and then a web link to that. And so I think that needs to be probably redone, so it would be shorter, easier to read, but the information would still be there, but the person reading it wouldn't have to read it on that particular site. They could just click and go to the website. And there'd be an advantage to that, because as their information changes at that website, names or phone numbers and that kind of thing, we wouldn't have to correct it. It'd already be corrected, so. And are you all going forward with the pamphlet then, or the short version, very short version?
Yes, I think that Kim has been the fearless leader on that one, and
Oh,
she's not
okay.
here this evening, so.
Right, okay, so we'll,
But yes, the plan is to
Okay.
move forward with that.
this would make a nice pamphlet, what you've got here that you gave us last time. Just rearrange it a little bit and fold it,
Exactly.
hand it out quite easily.
You know, one of the things that I thought a lot about after last meeting was, and getting some really clear direction on, if this is being marketed to the potential kind of new and younger farmer generation, a pamphlet with numbers is probably not the most usable thing.
I like what she said about, just put the
Clicks.
simple info there and you just don't have to change it constantly, because people and numbers change.
Exactly. So really just refining who our audience is with that and moving forward, so.
At the Farm Bureau meeting, I'm not that technically savvy, but they had one presenter talk about the power of the electronic media, social media, and how it can amplify when it gets resent, retweeted, or whatever. It's very powerful. So, very good. Keep working on that. That sounds good. I like it. It's an attractive document. I think the shorter version has benefit too. All right, number 7, non-traditional and specialty agricultural assistance. Do we have any update on that one?
Yeah, I've been working on that. Marlene was working with me before, but she not longer. I finally decided, if you don't mind, I'm gonna take this down so you can hear me better. But, there's 2 sides of this coin. One, is actual food access and food security. And part of what I see is the lack of variety in food produced in our county. Not only during the traditional summer season, but we have, like I was saying about the farmers market, the traditional seasonal stuff that we have in the summer is kind of tapering off now. Now we need to have people that grow more fall season, or, you know, more emphasis on fruits this time of year, more people that are planning on doing that kind of thing. And we also have, similar to what we were talking about before, is land access. So I want to make a proposal, and I'm sorry, I apologize, I had a typed out guideline or this. I'll send it to Adam so he can send it to all of you. And what I will kind of calling it is the Oconee Grown Landowner Tax Incentive for food growers. And it would be, have requirements both for the landowner and for the food grower. And we, you know, there's different ways this has been done, but it is something that the county can do to give an incentive to both growers and particularly landowners. So if you have it might not necessarily be a young farmer, but say somebody that wants to try growing more okra next year, but they don't have enough actual property to grow it on. So a landowner would offer to lease them their property, and Oconee County would give them an incentive of some sort. And I'm saying a tax incentive, but it could be, I don't know, if I hadn't drilled down enough to see what we could do, but I would like to propose that we propose this to the county council, that we have some sort of incentive for landowners to let farmers use their property to grow food. This doesn't extend to other types of agriculture at this point, so what I'm talking about is just the food part. So what I would like for y'all to do, and I'm sorry, like I said, you don't have anything to look at, but what I'd like to do is make a motion that after you get the paper to look at, that you consider this and come back next meeting in October with some feedback to me so that we can, like you did, come up with a letter and a proposal to take to county council.
Debbie, have you seen other counties or other locations do something similar to this? Is there already
Yes, I
something in
do.
place?
Like I said, I have all that information, but I just walked out of the house with it. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
okay.
I'll get that to make sure that, a lot of it is more statewide, and it's more like on income tax type thing. But I'm talking about, it would have to be more of a property tax
Property
type
tax.
thing for the county. And, you know, who knows, like I said, it'd be torn apart from beginning to end, you know, but to some sort of incentive. It may not even be a tax, maybe it's a tax break or a, I don't
Little
know,
grant, mini grant.
grants or something that gives the people who have land available an incentive to lease it to someone that's gonna produce food. Because we have a lack of food produced for Oconee County, for our citizens. And I think, I mean, it could include some requirements like, you know, say, just off the top of my head, 30% of it has to be available for either retail or for a food bank. Or, you know, some percentage of it would have to be, the grower would have to make sure that he sold it in Oconee County. This is what I'm, you know, looking for you to do, is to help me noodle this through so that we come up with some requirements for both the landowner and the food producer, so that it makes sense for what we're trying to do, both food access and food security and land use. So,
And younger farmers, yeah, that's
yeah, so
great.
it's kind of a combination. Like I said, it's a two-sided coin, because you can't have one without the other. So,
Mr. Bland, you have a motion on the table?
Was that in the form of a
yes, I'd like
motion?
to move that you, the board comes back next month with feedback for me so that we can flesh out this proposal.
Okay, motion's made, do we have a second? The motion is to provide feedback for county land incentives for food growers. Does that sum it up pretty well?
Landowners, yeah.
Food growers, landowners, and it's an incentive program to promote growing food.
Second.
Second, okay, and any discussion? I think it's a good idea. I think,
Yeah, my main question goes back to what Ed was asking, which was, what are the other examples? And particularly, I'm interested in, I know you mentioned the statewide kind of income tax benefits, but if it's not an income tax benefit and you are proposing some type of tax incentive, who would manage it if it's not an income tax, right? Yeah, okay, cool,
it was just too much to talk
Yeah.
about.
because that's where.
I dropped
where my-
feedback
Right,
like
right,
that
right,
is what I
right.
want, yeah.
Okay,
But I do have some points that I'll make sure you get a hold of before
Okay.
this.
is this related to the Atlanta program we talked about?
Yes, in a way, and also there's several states, like I said, they're talking more about, property tax, income tax.
tax.
But several states, Michigan, Ohio, I think, what's the other one, have incentive programs for people who lease land to other people. So they get such a percentage off of their income tax because they lease this land to somebody. Because there's always, you have obligations,
Sure.
tax obligations. Well, if you don't do anything with it, you're not making money on it, So, but if you give somebody an incentive to make a little bit of money on it by, giving them some sort of incentive, then you're more likely to have them use it. So, I will, it's a lot to think about, but once you get the outline that I have, it'll probably give you a little more, right now, I'm asking for feedback anyway, so it doesn't have to be totally hashed out. I don't have it all hashed out.
Did you say you're gonna email it to Adam and let him distribute it?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll
Okay.
send it to Adam and he can distribute it to you.
Great, okay.
okay,
I apologize for
That's
that.
okay.
no, it's great,
No,
thank you.
I think it's a great
It's a good
idea.
idea,
I think
yeah.
how it was managed, that's all to be talked about, but I
Right.
think it's a good concept.
And if you can come up with something other than a tax incentive or tax, whatever,
The farmer's gotta get something out of it.
Yes.
Don't let somebody use his land.
yeah.
The landowner has to get something out of it.
Landowner
for
has
that
to get
one.
something out of it. And that's, if you can come up with some other, little tidbit for me to, for us to give there, that would be a good, but I think even some sort of tax break is what I'm looking at.
We have
All
a
right,
motion
we have a
and
motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think we've discussed it well. Let's have a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. There are none, so it passes. It's a good idea. And we'll look forward to discussing it further next time. And we had a motion and a vote. Hallelujah. So, Victory Gardens. Any update on Victory Gardens or any further thoughts? We've discussed it a few times.
Yeah, I have a proposal for that. I think we should take that off the rotation. I think we talked it to death.
I agree, and it's kind of, since we don't have the fair to prepare anything to show at the fair, since there's no fair, we can discuss it later on or somewhere down the road when the time's right, when we have something to look forward to demonstrating some of those techniques. So we'll take that off the agenda for the time being until it's applicable and move on. All right. Any other items to discuss? All right, hearing none, I think we might get out of here a little early. How about that?
Wow.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Do we have a second? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Call it a meeting.